so much for joining the second ever Collegetown class. I am so excited to be here with Chef Kay and the rest of the Collegetown staff. I am going to turn it over to my wonderful colleague, Marketing Director at Collegetown, Kay Monsanto.
Hi, everybody. Of course, I'm Kay. And if you know me, I am a leadership and Collegetown stan. So if you know me, you probably know me from Leadership Class 1, Leadership Class 2, or Leadership Class 9. I also was on the board of the Leadership Alumni Board for the inaugural year. And now I'm the marketing director. So if you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of Collegetown. So much so that it's my job to just go around and tell everybody how great it is. So I have a lot of fun doing that. And I'm glad to do this class with you today. This is one of my favorite recipes. I love pop culture, I love Beyonce, and I love food. So today we're focusing on food, and this recipe is kind of derived from something, but tips and tricks that my aunt taught me. So my aunt, Marie Carmel, who I affectionately call Caramel, is the reason why I'm able to kind of soup up and supercharge your basic cake box or your cake mixes like this. And I added a component of the caramel sauce in honor of my aunt because she's one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, and she taught me how to make this cake. So basically, we can go ahead and preheat our ovens. If you're baking with me now, go ahead and preheat your oven to 350. And if you're not, just watch along. So in the meanwhile, I'm gonna go ahead and take my Duncan Hines Butter Golden, and I'm gonna go and open that package. So I'm gonna take my scissors here, just slice that open. And I keep this box for any trash. So like your eggshells or anything like that, you could take the plastic out and actually compost the box with the eggshells. So I like to just go ahead and pour that in. And I like to take my whisk and just start to break it up a little bit. If you're fancy and you have like a flour sieve that you could shift your flour through, like a flour sifter, you can go ahead and do that too. But I like to just break it up a little bit with the whisk. I use the butter golden because it is already tending to be a little richer than the typical yellow cake. So that's kind of fun. And what I do to look at the ingredients, I kind of take the ingredients and shift them. So on the box, you can see that it says we're going to use eggs, butter, and water, but we're going to use milk instead. And if you want to use plant milk, that's just fine, because I'll be using almond milk. And what I like to do is make a little hole. Usually you should use a glass bowl. Don't use a metal bowl, but use what you have. And I like to make a little hole in the middle and put all my wet things in the center of my bowl. So I'm going to take my almond milk and measure out exactly as it says on the box, the 3/4 of a cup. So we don't alter the amounts, but we can alter the ingredients sometimes. Like if it calls for 2 eggs and you want a richer cake, you can go ahead and toss an extra egg in there. Or if it calls for oil, you can toss butter in there or your butter alternative. And it'll just give you a little bit of a richer flavor. But I'm using unsweetened original almond milk. And then I'll take my 3 eggs. And if there's any questions along the way, please feel free to stop and ask. I use 3 large eggs. The recipe calls for large eggs. If you don't have large eggs, if you have medium or jumbo, again, use what you have. And sometimes I have family members that like to add their own little touches. So like my sister likes to add chocolate chips. My mom likes to add a little teaspoon of vanilla. Just because I have some vanilla in my cabinet, this is what I have. I'm just gonna give it a little drop of vanilla just to give it a little extra oomph. My aunt sometimes would spice it up, and she would add nutmeg and cinnamon to make it like a spicy cake. So I like to just go ahead and start whisking some of that wet ingredient mix in the middle and work my way out. But we don't want to forget our butter. So I'd like to get going and add that in. So then we're gonna take our stick of butter, and because this butter is gold, I use salted butter because I think it emphasizes the flavor. But if you're not into salted butter, you can use plain butter. And I like to slice my butter because it's cold. If you have the time, you wanna leave it out a little bit so you can have soft butter. Or if you have a mixer or a hand mixer, you can also do that as well. So I'm just gonna start to add my butter pieces in there. And that's pretty much, it calls for most of the stick. It calls for 7 tablespoons. So the stick of butter is typically 8. You're gonna use the majority of it. It's a lot of butter, so I don't make this cake often, clearly. It's only for the holidays and like special occasions, because it's pretty rich. So we're gonna use this little tab of butter. You wanna save that last tablespoon, because we're gonna use that to grease our pan. And I'm using my decorative pan with a lot of crevices, so you wanna make sure you grease it really well. So now we're just gonna try to break that butter in and start to mix our cake mix. That's why you should use room temperature butter. Preparation is key, right? And I like to work my way out and start to add that cake flour mix in. And if you don't get your chunks all the way broken down the way you like, that's okay too, because it'll melt in your cake and you'll have these little rich pockets in your cake sometimes too. So it's not bad. And if I'm going too fast, just let me know. I'm a New Yorker, so I naturally just speed it up, but I'll try to take my time as best as I can. So yeah, you wanna just whisk as much as possible, get those lumps out. And if you're feeling interested in rum flavoring in the cake, you wanna go ahead and add a splash of rum or add a splash of your rum flavoring at this point. So what I think I will do is add a little splash of rum, just a little extra detail, brings all those flavors together. So here's my golden Bacardi rum, and I'm just gonna give it a little dash right there. And when it bakes, it'll pretty much cook out the alcohol. So if you're concerned about alcohol consumption, just make sure you cook your alcohol down. And if you don't want it at all, you could always buy rum flavoring in the spice section of your supermarket, because that will give you the same taste without the actual liquor. So I feel like I'm ready to start getting this together in my pan, right? So we wanna make sure we grease our pans. I'm not gonna grease my pan today. I'm gonna use my nonstick spray. What I usually do is grease my pan with butter all the way around. And then I use my nonstick spray and double down in the places where I feel like it's extra tricky. So I would typically do that around the edges of your bundt, around the edges of the cake here, and the top of the cake. Because sometimes your cake could break in there. So you don't want that to happen at all. So I'm just gonna give it a good healthy spray and hope for the best. And then you wanna make sure you definitely spray around the center of the cake so that your cake slides out with ease. Yes, when I say a healthy amount, I mean a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and start to pour my batter in. And what you wanna do is pour around so that it doesn't stop in one spot. So if you can see that, we can pour our batter in so that one side is not more level than the other. And And then I also like to take, let's stick this here. Kitchens get messy, so that's okay too. I have my spatula and I will just scrape out the inside of that bowl. So that way you don't have cake batter in your sink. I prefer not to have cake batter in my sink if I can help it. Great. I'm going to take these 2 pieces. They have egg on them, so you want to wash your hands. And I'll stick that over there. So you want to take this and stick that in your preheated 350-degree oven. And then you'll let it bake for the instructions on the back. You'll let it bake for about 35 minutes to about 40 minutes. So it depends on your pan, the thickness of your pan. This pan is pretty heavy, so I would give it about 40 minutes. I have another pan that's pretty thin, and I'll give that about 35 minutes because it'll cook a little bit faster and it's a little bit wider. This one's cooking up, so I'll give it a little more time. So you definitely want to use your nose and smell out for the cake, and try not to open it. Try not to open the oven the best you can because you don't want your cake to fall. That's a possibility too. So just be careful, smell, make sure you check it, smell. If your oven has a window, that's great. You could kind of tease and look there, but try to wait till the entire 35 to 40 minute span is over. So you stick that in your oven and we move on to our syrup. So our syrup is where we bring in our sugar, our butter, and rum mixtures together. So I have another stick of butter here. I'm going to use about 3/4 of a cup. 3/4 of a cup is about 4 tablespoons. No, I'm going to use a 1/4 cup. So I'm using 4 tablespoons. Apologies. I usually just don't explain this cake. I just make it. It's like muscle memory. So bear with me. So we're going to use 4 tablespoons for our 1/4 cup. All right. And we're going to stick that in our pan first. We're going to take a 1/4 cup of sugar and stick that in there as well. I like to use this golden sugar. It's like less processed than your white sugar, but white sugar is also just fine. My mom likes to use brown sugar that she gets from her favorite organic market, and it comes out a little deeper and richer in flavor, but it really depends on your taste buds. Again, that's the beauty of making homemade things that are a little bit changed. You could always change it to your taste and the flavors that you enjoy the most. So you take that and then you add a 1/4 cup of your rum or water. And you want to put that on your stove on a low fire and stir it as it melts together. So once you melt all of that together, you get this really rich, delicious syrup that you're going to pour over your cake as it's cooling. And it'll really absorb all of that and be really moist. It's not soggy. I thought the first time I was doing it that it'll be super soggy, but it doesn't. It doesn't get that way. The cake really absorbs all of that moisture and gives you a nice, rich, moist cake that lasts, and the moisture lasts over time because cakes tend to get dry pretty quickly over the holiday season, right? So there's no rush to eat it immediately because it stays pretty intact. And then we have, I forgot I need one more bowl. I'm so sorry. We're gonna take our sweetened condensed milk that we boiled for 3 hours just about, and we're gonna make a sauce with that. So what you do is you buy your sweetened condensed milk, you wanna take that label off and stick it in some water and make sure you cover your can in the pot. Let's say for instance, it was this pot, you wanna make sure the water covers the can so we don't have any accidents. We don't want this can to explode, but we do want the sweetened condensed milk inside to turn into the caramel base for our sauce. So I'm gonna grab a bowl and I'll be right back.
Never have I ever boiled a can of condensed milk. This would be a first, but how exciting. The risk of possible explosion makes it spicy.
I love watching it.
Oh my gosh. No, the Kay needs a show. Kay needs a YouTube channel of cooking.
It's so relaxing to watch. It is. I love the setup, just the plants, all of it.
Okay, mid-class Pump up for Kay. Okay. Return.
Thank you guys. I was so nervous, so I was just happy
No,
that you
I
guys
love
are
it,
having
and
a good time.
I love the head wrap too.
Thank you
It's
so
so
much.
nice to listen to.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Chilling in the office, doing budget stuff.
Oh.
It's great.
Thank you guys so much. So we're gonna take our can and we're gonna open it up, and there should be some golden deliciousness inside. So let's see. Our spoon. Slide that in our fake little garbage can with our cake box. And inside you can see we have caramel. So you really want to take the time and do this one. It's an easy cheat to making caramel from scratch. So we're going to pour that into our bowl with our spatula here. See how thick it is? You have this beautiful caramel. I did this one for about 3 hours, just under. And then we'll take a little splash of our rum. And you want to take a splash of that syrup. You want to take about a tablespoon of that syrup that you'll make in this pot. And you want to add that to this. And it's going to thin out the consistency of this caramel, right? So you're just going to stir it up. And you're going to see it's going to get nice and smooth. You want to make sure you get it all in, get your edges, and fold it back into the center. And you've pretty much prepared all the pieces for this cake. Honestly, this is one of my favorite parts of the cake because you can put it on pretty much anything. And if you're feeling fancy, I like to sprinkle a little tablespoon of sea salt, and it just makes the flavors really, really pop. I like to also use this on waffles. I've used it on waffles, ice cream, doused it on cookies. This sauce is really a star, and it stands on its own. So even if you don't make this cake situation, you can make this sauce really easily on your own and be really impressive. So once you do that, you bake everything and you put it on your plate. And I like to drizzle the whole thing on top of the cake, but I also like to serve it and slice individual cakes and let people put as much or as little caramel as they want on there. So that's pretty much the basics of having, making this butter rum cake. This is one of my favorite things to make. And I'm glad that you guys joined me for this. If there are any questions, I'm ready. Gonna move some things around here.
I have a question, Kay. So I'm mystified by the boiling of the condensed milk, which is happening in the chat. Everybody's like oohing and ahhing, so you know, science. I'm curious, was that handed down as part of the family recipe, or is that something you added yourself with a little bit of Google power? Because I feel like I would have to research that a bit before I blew it up accidentally.
Oh, sure. I'm a fan of following a lot of chefs and bakers that I enjoy on Instagram, and I, scroll Pinterest all the time for baking tips. And I think it was Chef Risha on Instagram, Resha, that suggested boiling the condensed milk like years ago. I saw that. And I've kind of just taken that portion and added that to the original recipe as like my version of this cake, because everybody has learned it from my aunt, but everybody makes their own version. So this is like my little touch that is not only an ode to her, but like this is my version that is signature, if that makes sense.
Oops. I love it. I had to make sure I wasn't muted. We also have a question in the chat. I'm also finding Chef Risha, Resha, I'm finding her Instagram, and I'll drop that in the chat as well. But to address our question from Morgan, what is the difference between the sugar you use and white sugar? And I also have a sub bullet point on that. Great question, Morgan. I had a question about the sugar as well. Can you find golden sugar in like a giant Safeway?
Yes, I bought this golden sugar. It's Domino, so it's a pretty popular brand. I bought this at my normal grocery store. You should be able to find it. It's just less processed than white sugar, which mentally, it's probably a marketing thing, which mentally in my mind, I feel like that's better. But white sugar is fine. And if you like that deep, rich flavor of brown, brown is also good. So it's really up to your taste buds. But this you can find in your local grocery store.
Great, thank you. I did not even know golden sugar existed, so I'm so many tips and tricks I'm learning.
Me either. I'm just here for the great time. I'm loving all this. We need to do this more often, like bi-weekly. I don't care. I don't care. However we're doing this, I love it. I just told my roommate to go pick up some chocolate and some stuff so we can make cookies because
It's the season for baking. It's cool outside. It's nice to have a little dessert on hand. So yeah, my sister and her partner love to put chocolate chips in this cake, which I feel like is a little decadent for me, but they love it.
That sounds really good. Oh my gosh. What we need to do is like a way we can taste test it. Like, are you going to send out like slices of the cake when you're done?
Airdrop it to Philadelphia and around Baltimore.
I wish I knew how to ship food, but there's a way to ship food, but I just am not privy. I do have a cake friend that knows how to ship food. So once I figure that out, my thing that I want to do for the fall is test how to make minis. So I want to make mini versions of this cake instead of having like the whole cake, and you can have like 1 serving or 2 servings in a small mini version. I haven't figured out the measurements just yet because I am using a box mix, but I think that once I experiment with it, we can see about getting it to people.
I love that.
Just for the love. I love to share this food. I love to share this recipe because I just like to feed people, and I love to see their reaction and like how they enjoy the food. And that just like adds to the experience and the culture and the communication and connection that happens around meals. So I'm happy to just like send it out if I can. And that's why I wanted to share this one with you guys. It was a lot of fun.
I love the idea of mini too, as well, Kay, for like holiday gifts, like the people that are like your neighbors, like in your life, but like, I don't necessarily like want to buy you a gift card. Like, here's this like lovely, delicious, personalized, because it's so tied to your culture and heritage and family, like such a personal, lovely gift. I truly support your experimentation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yay.
I'll let you guys know how it goes.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that sounds awesome. And I would love to do this again. I have to hop off, and I miss you guys so much. But Kay, I will be looking forward to a taste test at some point. But I'll wait my turn. But I hope you guys all have a great day, and I just love seeing your lovely faces. Bye.
Thanks, Dahlia.
Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for coming.
Bye.
So this went pretty quickly, much faster than I thought, but yeah, like that's pretty much how the cake goes. It's pretty swift to put together. It's just the gathering of ingredients that's probably like the most difficult part because it's a lot of small little steps.
Mm-hmm. How many Bundt pans do you have?
2 that I use. This is like my fancy one. Because it has like the extra designs in the top, and then I have my trusty go-to is a cheap $10 pan that I got from Walmart, and that is my girl. Okay, like we use her very, very often. We use lots of butter. For that one, sometimes things get stuck. So another trick that I'll do is I will grease it and I will put the pan in the freezer in advance and let that butter get solid, and then. For some reason, I don't know the science yet or why. Maybe like the same reason why you put cold butter in biscuits, but just like the melting of the edges, it pops right out of the pan. So it's a little less difficult than using like room temperature. I stick that bad boy in the freezer. Yeah.
Noted. So many tips and tricks. Molly asks in the chat if you have a good biscuit recipe. Don't need to do a full class on biscuits right now, but if there's a chef you follow, I mean, you could. No. We do have 15 minutes.
No, Risha's biscuit recipe is phenomenal. So I everything that I've cooked from her recipes, from her site have always turned out really great. Her instructions are really easy to follow. And she makes a lot of great soul food and Southern things too. But her biscuit recipe is primo. So if you check out her page or her site or whatnot, that one is an easy go-to. I follow it word for word.
Great. I'm dropping is her website Carnal Dish?
Carnal Dish, yeah.
Yep, great. I'm dropping her buttermilk biscuits in here, as well as her flaky. Okay, she has 2 different recipes. She has normal buttermilk and the best flaky buttermilk. So let's see if they're different. We got version 1 and version 2. There might be.
I've done the best flaky one time. It turned out, Theo says, my partner, he loves biscuits. So I made that one time and he really enjoyed them. So I'll take his word for it. I thought they were great too, honestly, but biased.
It's good to have a second party taste tester. Anybody else have any other questions for Chef K? No?
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure we had enough time to mix everything and have questions in chat. So if everybody's cool, that's cool too. And we can just hang out, but
well, after it's posted on YouTube, if things are, come to mind as you're going through the process or collecting your ingredients or thinking about trial runs for this recipe, please feel free to comment on the video. We will be monitoring that, and Kay can answer any follow-up questions, as the process is happening. I feel like I'm queen of watching a tutorial and being like, I got it, and then going to the pan and being like, I don't got it. So just know that we will be monitoring that, and you can reach out to Kay with follow-up questions. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up a little bit early, just being cognizant of everybody's time. This was beautifully done, Kay. The setup, everybody is raving about it in the chat. Primo, you need a cooking show. Thank you so much for all of the effort you put into the production. It looks fabulous. Thank you to all our attendees. Hopefully, again in the chat, okay, I'm like relaying the chat because I know you're far away from your screen. Everybody is commenting on how soothing and wonderful and mood boosting this session has been. So you did us all such a midday solid on this Thursday, breaking up the grind a little bit with some wonderfully soothing. I could probably watch you stir caramel for 3 hours. So this was a lovely pick me up. And with that, another round of applause for Chef K. Wonderful job. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. Enjoy the rest of your Thursdays, everybody.
Bye. Happy baking.